All right, let's just jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking Anthony J. Farrier's strategic blueprint for taking your voice and actually transforming it into a sustainable, profitable business instrument. If you're overwhelmed by content creation, or you've ever thought about starting a show but the whole thing seems daunting, you are exactly where you need to be. We're going to look at how to stop treating your content like this chaotic, expensive hobby and start building a finely tuned ecosystem. Seriously, I want you to ask yourself this right now. Are you treating your podcast like an expensive hobby? You see, way too many creators fall into this totally predictable trap. They go out, drop hundreds or thousands of dollars on a top-of-the-line microphone, plug it in with this kind of vague hope of suddenly finding a massive audience, and, well, what happens? They abandon the whole thing within a few months because they hit total creative burnout. It's a tale as old as time in the digital age. So, to get us out of that trap, here's our roadmap for today. We're covering the podcast burnout trap, finding your North Star, building a lean content factory, repurposing for maximum power, and executing the ecosystem model. Let's get moving. Kicking things off with Section 1, the podcast burnout trap, and why exactly those expensive mics and vague hopes totally fail. You know, there's just a massive difference in approach here. On one hand, we have the hobbyist. They basically rely on throwing money at gear and crossing their fingers. It's exhausting, right? And it almost always leads to burnout. But then, on the flip side, we have the ecosystem builder. This kind of creator uses lean, highly efficient technology to create a sustainable, profitable, and completely scalable business instrument. They aren't just shouting into the void hoping someone listens. They're actually constructing a machine. And the beauty of this framework is that it really applies across the board. Whether you're an entrepreneur driving e-commerce sales, an independent music producer promoting new releases, an athlete trying to build a legacy brand, or an expert selling digital products, the goal is exactly the same. You're using this setup to capture a hyper-specific, fiercely loyal audience. It's not about chasing vanity metrics, it's about making a targeted impact. Which brings us to Section 2, finding your North Star and dominating your micro niche. Listen, if you take nothing else away from this first half, please remember this. Stop appealing to the masses. Trying to be absolutely everything to absolutely everyone is literally a one-way ticket to that burnout trap we just talked about. Think of your North Star kind of like a lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't try to light up the entire ocean, right? It cuts through the dark in one very specific direction to guide ships safely away from the rocks. So the absolutely crucial point here is that you've got to target audience personas to find your safe harbor. By defining exactly who is listening, what their problems are, and what they actually care about, you can completely dominate a micro niche. Because when you speak directly to a specific persona, your audience starts to feel like you're reading their minds. And honestly, that is exactly where the magic happens. Moving right along to Section 3, the lean content factory. This is all about systemizing your production so you can scale without the friction. Farrior frames this whole content process not as some mystical art form, but as a reliable, predictable factory engine. You absolutely do not research, record, and edit one single episode at a time. No way. You batch it. You do all your research at once, then you sit down and knock out all your recording at once, and finally you do all your editing. This literal assembly line is what keeps your content factory running relentlessly and smoothly. Now, why does this matter so much? Because you have to maintain relentless consistency, even on the days you completely lack motivation. Think of yourself as the factory manager. Look, some days the manager wakes up and just does not feel inspired to work. We've all been there. But because you've batched your work in advance, the factory just keeps on producing anyway. It's truly the ultimate safeguard against burnout. So let's see how this actually translates into your physical setup. Think of audio production like a commercial kitchen. The expensive studio approach is kind of like buying a $10,000 oven and just assuming it'll make you a master chef. But the lean studio, that achieves professional-grade audio by prioritizing the ingredients, meaning your room acoustics, and using accessible vintage hardware. Honestly, some heavy blankets, sound panels, and a quiet space are going to do vastly more for your sound quality than a massive price tag ever will. And just to keep running with that kitchen analogy, these professional-grade open-source tools, they are your trusty chef's knives. Software like Audacity for your audio and Shotcut for your video are completely free. They're open-source programs that just cut right through the noise of those expensive monthly subscription models. You really don't need a bloated budget to produce a premium top-tier meal for your audience. Which brings us to Section 4, repurpose for maximum power. Here's how you take one single session and turn it into a full week of content. 45. This simple number, a single 45-minute recording session, is the absolute foundation of this entire strategy. Going back to our factory and kitchen analogies, this 45-minute block is your prime cut. It's the core piece of raw material that you're going to use to feed your whole ecosystem.
And this right here is the multiplier effect in action. Let's walk through this timeline together. Hour 1 is your prime cut, that 45-minute recording session. By day 2, you've carved it up into short-form video clips to grab attention. By day 4, you've taken the transcript from that session and generated full written blogs. And by day 6, the absolute best insights are sent out as newsletter highlights to your subscribers. You're literally feeding an entire hyper-specific audience for a full week from just 45 minutes of actual talking. And finally, we arrive at section 5, executing the ecosystem model. This is where we leverage your podcast as the front door.
Okay, this is where it all really comes together. Your show is not some isolated island. It's the front door to a much larger building. You bring in your listeners at the top of the funnel, and because you've already established authority and consistency with them, they trust you. From that front door, you seamlessly walk them down the hallway to your LLC storefront. You point them towards your merchandise lines, and you introduce them to your digital product suites. The content does all the heavy lifting of building that trust, so the sales process happens totally naturally, without any weird friction.
I want to share this quote from the author, Anthony J. Farrior. He says, "The multiplier effect is not just a technical manual, it is a strategic blueprint for transforming your voice into a sustainable, profitable business instrument." And honestly, that's the core takeaway of this entire explainer. Your voice has immense value. You just have to put the right architecture behind it. So I'll leave you with one final thought to chew on today. Are you going to keep grinding away, treating your voice like a chaotic, exhausting hobby? Or are you actually ready to build your ecosystem? The tools are lean, the blueprint is right here in front of you, and your micro niche is out there waiting. Get out there and build your factory.